close your eyes for a moment and imagine stepping out of the modern world. No phones, no messages, no quick dates arranged through a glowing screen. Instead, you enter a completely different age. A time when even a brief glance followed rules, when a polite greeting could shape your reputation, and when a single one-hour visit might define the rest of your life. This is the Victorian era, an age famous for elegance, refinement, and restraint. But beneath that polished surface lived a maze of expectations, silent pressures, and social boundaries that shaped every choice a person made. Love, courtship, marriage, none of them were truly private. In this story, you will follow the life of a young woman living in London. In the year 1855, you will see a city not only of grand buildings and glittering storefronts, but of coal smoke drifting through narrow streets, horses clattering over cobblestones, and the rising hum of a growing empire. You will watch her wake on a cold morning, pulling herself from beneath heavy blankets and stepping into the strict rituals of Victorian womanhood. Every layer of clothing, every breath drawn against a tight corset, every movement watched and judged. This is where her journey begins. But the heart of this story lies not in dramatic action, but in the quiet intensity of everyday life. The nervous flutter when a suitor knocks at the door. The delicate balance between desire and propriety. The weight of family expectations pressing gently, but constantly, on her future. This story also asks questions that still echo today. Does moving slowly create deeper, more lasting love? Does careful conversation, genuine attention, and the patience of getting to know someone truly matter? Or were these rules simply chains? Restrictions that trapped people inside society's expectations? As the journey unfolds, you will walk beside her through moments of discovery and doubt, through the warmth of a growing connection, through the tension of a proposal, through the ceremony of a wedding, through the quiet, tender, uncertain first days of marriage, and then through the long years in which two people learn to build a life together. By the time her story reaches its end, you may find yourself wondering whether the Victorians, for all their rigid rules and endless etiquette, understood something important about slow, steady love. If you are ready, welcome to London, 1855. Your journey into Victorian love begins here. Part 1. The social background and human psychology of the Victorian era. London, in the middle of the 19th century, was a world in transformation, a city growing faster than anyone could fully understand, a place where elegance and hardship existed side by side, separated only by a few streets or a few shillings. As you step into this landscape, you must first understand the world that shaped every emotion, every habit, and every choice of the people who lived within it. Victorian society rested on a rigid structure, a ladder of class, duty, and reputation, and climbing, slipping, or breaking from that structure could change a family's future forever. During this era, London did not resemble the romantic settings we picture from novels. The air was thick with coal smoke rising from factories and fireplaces. Horse-drawn carriages crowded the streets, their wheels grinding against cobblestones slick with dirt and rain. Market vendors shouted for attention. Street children ran between carts searching for half-eaten food. And in the wealthier districts, ladies walked arm in arm, their long skirts sweeping over pavements dusted with soot. This was a city alive, but not always gentle. For a young woman in this world, life was defined less by what she wanted and more by what society expected of her. The idea of independent choice was rare. Her clothing, her education, her posture, and even the way she lowered her eyes were signals of identity, measuring whether she deserved respect. A woman's future depended deeply on how well she navigated these expectations. In Victorian culture, social class was everything. To be born into the middle class, as our young protagonist was, meant living in a delicate space, not wealthy enough to enjoy true comfort, but expected to behave with the dignity and refinement of those above her. A single mistake could stain a family's standing. A too bold conversation, an unchaperoned walk, or even accepting a gift from the wrong gentleman. The pressure placed on young women was quiet, constant, and deeply emotional. They were taught from childhood that their role was to maintain order and grace, to uphold the family's reputation, and ultimately to marry well enough to secure their future. Love, in this sense, was not a luxury, it was a negotiation. But this does not mean that Victorians lacked feeling or longing. On the contrary, their emotional worlds were rich, filled with dreams, fears, and silent hopes. Yet these feelings were wrapped tightly in layers of restraint. To show too much excitement, to express too much interest, even to smile too broadly at the wrong moment could be read as improper. For men, the expectations were different but equally heavy. A gentleman was expected to be controlled, capable, and steady. He carried the responsibility of financial stability, the duty to represent his family with honor, and the unspoken requirement of proving himself worthy before he could even consider marriage. And for those who, like Thomas Weatherbe, returned from faraway colonies such as India, there was an added layer of complexity. Foreign experiences that could unsettle the very people they hoped to impress. At the heart of this world was a simple truth. Victorians lived within a finely woven web of rules that shaped their psychology. People learned caution early. They learned to speak gently, to listen more than they expressed, and to read emotions through tiny gestures rather than bold confessions. Desire was quiet. Hope was modest. And fear, especially the fear of social failure, was a constant companion. Understanding this delicate emotional landscape is the key to understanding the story that is about to unfold. Because our young woman is not merely choosing a future husband. She is navigating a world built on invisible boundaries, old traditions, and the quiet but powerful weight of expectation. Her thoughts, her reactions, her careful steps all take place within a society that watches her closely. And now, with this world in mind, her story can truly begin. Part 2. A day in the life of a Victorian young woman. Morning in a Victorian household did not begin with sunlight or gentle music. It began with cold. A sharp, bone-deep cold that slipped through stone walls and settled into every part of the room. You are a young woman of 22, living in a respectable middle-class home in London. Your future is unwritten, but every day feels like a quiet rehearsal for the moment society will judge you ready for marriage. Your eyes open to a dim room lit only by the first pale hints of dawn. The blankets are heavy, but the air outside them bites at your skin. There is no central heating, no warm radiator humming beside the bed. There is only the small fireplace in the corner of your room, and it has long gone cold during the night. A few moments later, you hear footsteps on the stairs. Steady, practiced, already tired. Your maid, Mary, enters carrying a full scuttle of coal that weighs more than a modern suitcase. She's been awake since 5, tending fires, boiling water, and readying the house for the day ahead. "Good morning, miss," she says, kneeling before your fireplace and arranging the kindling with hands darkened by soot. The first spark catches. Soon a soft orange glow spreads across the room, pushing back the morning chill. You stretch beneath the blankets, feeling the stiffness of sleep and the weight of expectation settling around you. As a young Victorian woman, you're not preparing for work or school or a spontaneous day out with friends. You are preparing to present yourself, your demeanor, your manners, your appearance, to a world that has already decided what you should become. Mary moves efficiently, laying out the layers you must wear. The shift, the corset, the petticoats, the dress. Each piece represents part of your place in society. When Mary helps you into your shift, the thin cotton feels almost like nothing, a brief softness before the constriction to come. Then comes the corset. She pulls the laces behind you with steady, practiced strength. Your breath shortens, your ribs tighten, and the familiar pressure settles around your torso, like a reminder of your role. The corset shapes your body and quietly shapes your behavior. It teaches you not to bend, not to slouch, not to move too quickly. It teaches patience, restraint, silence. Next come the petticoats, layers of fabric that rustle with every step, weighing down your movements. Then your dress, carefully chosen, modest and respectable. Not too bright, not too bold, just enough to suggest refinement without signaling vanity. Mary pins your hair into the fashionable style of the day, parted neatly, smoothed, gathered into a low arrangement that suggests discipline more than freedom. Your morning meal arrives, porridge with a little cream, toast with butter, and tea strong enough to shake you fully awake. You must eat carefully. One spilled drop of tea could stain your dress and stain your mother's patience. As you eat, the house awakens around you. You hear cook preparing the midday meal, the housemaid sweeping the front steps, the low murmur of your father reviewing account books in his study. Life in a Victorian household is a quiet choreography. Every person moves with purpose. Every sound belongs to the rhythm of family expectation. After breakfast, your mother stops by your room. She sees your dress, your hair, your posture, and approves with a simple nod. Her gaze lingers a moment longer than usual, as if weighing your readiness for something larger. A future visit, a possible suitor, a step toward the life she hopes you will soon enter. You descend the stairs and walk to the small library, a room lined with books your family treasures more for appearance than use. Here, you read poetry, practice the piano, or do needlework, all with the awareness that these accomplishments are not hobbies but qualifications for the role of wife. Every stitch, every note, every carefully chosen word is part of your training. Mid-morning passes slowly. You look out the window and watch London come alive. Ladies in elegant gowns walk with measured steps. Men tip their hats as they pass. Horse-drawn carts rattle by, their drivers shouting their wares into the busy street. The world outside feels larger than the one inside your home, yet it is still bound by the same unspoken rules. And as you watch, you cannot help but wonder what your own place will be in this intricate social dance. This is a day in your life, ordinary by Victorian standards, but shaped by pressures and rituals that will soon lead you into the complicated world of courtship. Part 3. The strict rules of Victorian courtship. Before you can step into the world of romance, you must understand something essential. Victorian courtship was not dating. It was a system designed to protect families, manage reputations, and secure futures long before hearts were even considered. For a young woman like you, every gesture, every word, and every moment spent in the presence of a man was monitored and interpreted. Society believed that emotions could not be trusted on their own. Love had to be guided, managed, supervised. And so, an entire network of rules was created to make sure nothing improper occurred. The chaperone, the first and most unbreakable rule. A young woman could not spend time alone with an unmarried man. Not in the garden, not in the parlor, not even on a short walk. Someone, your mother, your aunt, or another trusted woman, must always be present. The chaperone was not only protection for you, she was a witness, a guardian of your virtue and of your family's honor. The rules of conversation. Your words mattered. Too much enthusiasm, and you risked appearing improper. Too little, and a gentleman might assume you lacked refinement. You were expected to be intelligent but not argumentative, gracious but not bold, pleasant but never flirtatious. A single misstep in tone could end a courtship before it ever truly began. The rules of physical contact. Touch was powerful, too powerful, Victorians believed, to be allowed casually. A handshake might be acceptable, but only with permission and only in the correct social setting. Even engaged couples were limited to small gestures. A brief touch of the hand, a carefully monitored kiss, always under supervision. Desire was to be contained. Expression was to be controlled. The rules of gifts: no jewelry, no books, no personal items of sentimental value. To receive such a gift from a man meant that you encouraged his affection, and Victorian society watched such things closely. Flowers were acceptable. Their beauty was temporary and their meaning subtle. But anything more permanent was considered a declaration too bold for early courtship. The rules of time. A gentleman's visit typically lasted 1 hour, not 40 minutes, not 2 hours. 1 hour, exactly. Any shorter implied disinterest. Any longer suggested impropriety. Visits occurred on specific days, usually announced in advance and recorded by the family. Your schedule was part of the system, your availability curated to maintain dignity and restraint. The rules of observation. While a man spoke to you, your parents studied him. They watched his posture, his manners, his respect toward servants, his tone of voice, his ability to hold a thoughtful conversation. Courtship was a joint effort, your heart, their judgment, and the society around you acting as a constant chorus. But perhaps the most important rule of all was the one you felt rather than heard. Your reputation was fragile. One rumor, one misunderstanding, one moment of being seen in the wrong place with the wrong man could damage your chances of marriage and alter the path of your entire life. It seems harsh to us today, but in the Victorian world, a family's standing was a valuable form of currency. Protecting it was a duty, a responsibility, and in many ways, a burden you inherited simply by being born a young woman. These rules may feel restrictive, and they were. But they also created a structure, a framework within which affection could grow slowly, quietly, and deliberately. And soon, you will see these rules in action, because the time is approaching when a gentleman will walk through your family's front door, sit in your parlor, and take the first careful step toward becoming part of your life. If you are ready, the first meeting awaits. Part 4. The first meeting with Thomas Weatherbe. The day of the visit arrives with a quiet sense of anticipation. Not excitement, that would be too bold for a Victorian young woman, but a gentle, tightening awareness that something important may occur this afternoon. Your mother has chosen your dress carefully, a refined shade, neither too bright nor too somber. Your hair is pinned into a neat arrangement, your gloves laid out, your posture rehearsed. Every detail matters. In this society, presentation is not vanity. It is communication. At 10 minutes before 3, you are seated exactly where your mother instructed, on the settee near the window, where the soft afternoon light will fall across your face at the most flattering angle. Your hands rest lightly in your lap, gloved fingers folded with practiced grace. Your father stands by the fireplace, checking his pocket watch. Your mother pretends to do needlework, though her eyes flick often toward the door. Then, a firm knock. The sound seems to fill the room. Footsteps, voices murmuring polite greetings in the hallway, the rustle of coats being removed, a walking stick placed in the stand. Your breath catches. You sit a little straighter, Your father steps into the parlor first, followed by the visitors. Mr. Weatherbe enters, a distinguished-looking gentleman with neatly kept silver whiskers and the posture of a man accustomed to ledgers and responsibility. Mrs. Weatherbe follows. Her silk dress whispers as she moves, her smile warm but observant. And then, Thomas. He is taller than you expected. His hair is parted neatly, framing a face made leaner by years spent abroad. There is a hint of sun-darkened color to his skin, something unusual in London, and perhaps a trace of weariness from a life lived far from home. He steps forward with measured confidence and offers a respectful bow. Miss Hartwell. You rise, lowering your gaze in a gesture of modesty, and offer a small, perfectly practiced curtsy. Mr. Weatherbe. Your voices meet for the first time. Brief, gentle, proper. Everyone takes their places as if stepping into a familiar script. Thomas sits across from you at the exact distance etiquette recommends, close enough for conversation, far enough to avoid even the slightest impropriety. Your parents begin a soft conversation with his, providing the necessary background hum of adult supervision, and then the polite dance begins. Thomas asks about your interests. You answer carefully, choosing topics that reflect education without ostentation. Poetry, music practice, perhaps a bit of French. He listens attentively, his posture respectful, his tone steady and warm. When he speaks of India, his voice gains depth. He describes long voyages, markets crowded with colors you cannot imagine, and the overwhelming heat that clung to every breath. He loosens his collar ever so slightly as he talks about the climate, and you notice the faint tension in his movements, a sign perhaps of experiences not easily forgotten. At one moment, Mrs. Weatherbe accidentally knocks over her teacup. The porcelain hits the table with a sharp clatter. Thomas reacts first. Not dramatically, but with a subtle, instinctive movement. A flinch, a tightening of the hands, a quick glance toward the doorway as if assessing the room. It lasts only a heartbeat, but you see it, and you remember. Sometimes the smallest gestures reveal the deepest stories. He rises gracefully, offers a clean handkerchief, and helps restore the calm. Your mother watches closely, approving of his composure and courtesy. The hour passes in its delicate rhythm, conversation, observation, careful smiles, soft pauses. Then, as the visit draws to a polite close, Thomas requests a brief word with your father in the hallway. You cannot hear the words, but you see their postures through the doorway. Thomas standing steady and sincere. Your father nodding thoughtfully, a handshake. Moments later, he returns. Miss Hartwell, he says, his voice composed but carrying a quiet hope. With your father's permission, I would be honored to call on you again, perhaps this coming Sunday, if it would be agreeable. Your heart lifts, a small, warm flutter beneath the layers of corset and fabric. That would be very pleasant, Mr. Weatherbe. When the Weatherbes depart, the analysis begins immediately. Your mother praises his manners, your father remarks on his prospects, and you remember the way he listened, the kindness in his eyes, and the single moment when a falling teacup revealed a shadow from his time abroad. The first meeting is over. A door, once closed, has quietly opened, and soon a second visit will come. Part 5. The growing connection through Sunday visits. The next Sunday arrives with a quiet sense of expectation, not the dramatic anticipation of a modern romance, but something softer, a steady flutter beneath the surface of daily routines. Thomas arrives precisely at 2 o'clock. Punctuality is not simply polite in Victorian society, it is character. A man who keeps his time is a man who keeps his word. He enters the parlor with the same calm dignity as before. Your mother settles into her chair with needlework, pretending not to listen. Your Aunt Carolyn sits nearby, eyes sharp behind her spectacles. You take your place on the settee as Thomas sits across from you at the socially approved distance. Everything begins the same way. The greetings, the polite exchange, the soft clink of teacups. But something has changed. There is an ease in Thomas's posture now, a quieter rhythm in his voice, and perhaps a subtle warmth directed only toward you. He speaks of his childhood as the youngest of 4 sons, always reaching upward for approval. You share thoughts about the books on your shelves, careful to choose titles suitable for polite discussion. Poetry, history, music, nothing too scandalous, though your private reading habits wander much farther. You watch him the way your mother taught you. His hands, his expressions, the way he responds when the tea tray wobbles or when your aunt asks a difficult question. Every gesture becomes a clue, each reaction a strand of truth. And he watches you in his own quiet way, not boldly, not inappropriately, but with attentive interest. Week by week, your Sunday meetings become a quiet ritual. He visits at 2, leaves at 3, and during that single hour, a bond begins to form. Delicate, careful, but undeniably real. Sometimes you talk about the weather or about new shops opening in the city. Other times, the conversations deepen. Thomas admits that after 4 years in India, London feels overwhelming, too loud, too crowded, too fast in ways he cannot always explain. It is strange, he says one afternoon, to return home and yet feel unfamiliar with it. You nod, feeling a surprising empathy. You have never traveled farther than Brighton, yet you understand the sense of not fully fitting into the place that shaped you. You speak softly, but something honest passes between you. Each Sunday, your conversations grow slightly braver. You begin to share thoughts you usually keep hidden. Your frustration at the limits placed on women, your longing to travel beyond London, your love of reading novels that society sometimes frowns upon. Thomas listens without judgment. More than that, he listens with interest. And in the moments when he shares something personal, you glimpse the man behind the polite exterior. He speaks of nightmares that linger from his years abroad. He speaks of the heat, the illnesses, the loneliness. His voice lowers when he mentions a colleague who wronged him. This is not a heroic confession. It is something more fragile than that. A truth, a vulnerability rarely shown in polite Victorian society. Yet your conversations never cross the invisible lines. Your mother remains within earshot. Your hands never touch. Your voices remain gentle. The rules are still there. But within them, something begins to bloom. A small moment of laughter shared over a tiny joke. A brief locking of eyes before you both look away. A sense of comfort that grows each time he returns. This is Victorian affection, quiet, gradual, layered like the petticoats beneath your dress. Nothing rushed, nothing careless. On the 4th Sunday, Thomas's tone carries a new weight, a thoughtful pause between words, a careful choice of phrasing. Then he asks, "Miss Hartwell, would you allow me the honor of escorting you to the exhibition at the Crystal Palace?" Of course, with proper chaperonage. Your breath catches. This is more than a simple outing. It is a declaration of intent, a signal that he wishes to move from acquaintance to something more official, more public, more meaningful. You answer with the grace your mother taught you, not too quickly, not too eagerly. "Yes, Mr. Weatherbe, I would be delighted." Your mother's sewing needle pauses in midair. You can feel her pride and her cautious optimism filling the room like a quiet breath. The rules of courtship are still in place. The chaperone will still walk behind you. Your hands will remain gloved and separate. But something has shifted. A door has opened inside the carefully built structure of Victorian etiquette, and the next step forward will take place beneath the shimmering glass arches of the Crystal Palace. Part 6. The Crystal Palace. Visit. The morning of your outing arrives with a brightness rare for London. The sky is clear, the air feels crisp, and for the first time in many weeks, you feel something close to excitement just beneath the calm surface you've learned to maintain. Your mother chooses your best dress, deep blue silk with a fitted jacket paired with pristine white gloves and a small hat adorned with matching ribbons. Mary helps you dress layer by layer, tightening your corset only slightly less than usual because, as she whispers, "You'll want to breathe properly today, miss." You smile, unsure if she means physically or emotionally. At 2 o'clock, Thomas arrives in a hired open landau, the kind of carriage that allows fresh air, yet still provides the proper visibility so that everyone can see you are traveling with a chaperone. Aunt Caroline sits opposite you in her sternest hat, the one with the sharp feathers that always seem to point accusingly at the world. Her presence ensures propriety. Her expression ensures fear. But her being here is expected. It is the Victorian way. Thomas offers you his arm as he helps you into the carriage. Your gloved fingers barely graze his sleeve, but the tiny spark of contact sends a wave of warmth through your chest. "Miss Hartwell," he says with a respectful nod. "You look very well today." The city unfolds as the carriage moves south. The wheels clatter over cobblestones. Vendors shout their wares, rows of narrow houses blur past. Chimneys exhale constant streams of smoke into the London sky. Thomas points out landmarks along the way. Westminster Abbey, the Houses of Parliament, bridges crowded with people and carts. As he speaks, you notice a quiet pride in his voice, as if returning from India has given him a new appreciation for home. The river glimmers beneath the afternoon sun, barges drifting slow and heavy, steamboats coughing black smoke into the air. Then, as the carriage climbs Sydenham Hill, you see it. The Crystal Palace. Iron and glass stretching upward like a cathedral made of light. Sunlight catches each pane until the entire structure seems to glow, brilliant and otherworldly. It is breathtaking. You cannot stop yourself from whispering, "It's magnificent." Thomas glances at you, and for a moment the admiration in his eyes is directed not at the building, but at you. Inside, the Crystal Palace feels even larger. The central nave stretches endlessly, filled with tropical plants, fountains sparkling under the glass roof, and displays from distant parts of the empire. Everywhere you look, there are colors, shapes, and sounds you have never experienced before. The three of you walk slowly, your mother's sister trailing behind with sharp attention, while you and Thomas drift from exhibit to exhibit within the boundaries of propriety. He guides you through crowds with subtle gestures, never touching, never too close, but always attentive to your comfort. There are moments when the noise grows overwhelming. Children laughing, merchants demonstrating new inventions, music drifting from mechanical instruments. Whenever the space becomes too crowded, Thomas steers you toward quieter alcoves filled with botanical displays or collections of ancient artifacts. You stop to admire a case of delicate butterflies, their wings shimmering with colors you have no names for. Thomas leans slightly closer, not enough to break any rule, but enough that you feel the warmth of him beside you. He whispers, "It is strange, Miss Hartwell, how something so fragile can appear so bold." You're not sure if he is speaking about the butterflies or about something else. Later, Aunt Caroline announces she needs refreshment. You find a small tea room overlooking the gardens and sit while she orders tea and a scone. It is in this brief pocket of privacy, only a few feet away from your chaperone, yet somehow shielded by the low murmur of voices, that Thomas gathers the quiet courage to speak more openly. He turns toward you, his hands folded neatly, his expression thoughtful. "Miss Hartwell, I hope you will not think me too forward, but I have come to value these times with you more than I expected." Your breath stops, then starts again, too fast. He looks down at his gloves on the table. "I wonder..." A pause. A dangerous pause for a Victorian gentleman. "If you might someday allow a deeper understanding between us." He stops himself. He knows the rules. This is not the time, not the place. But he has opened a door, and you carefully, politely, open it further. "Perhaps, Mr. Weatherbe," you say softly, "such matters are best discussed in the presence of my parents." Thomas looks up, and the relief, the unmistakable relief, in his expression is enough to warm your chest more than all the sunlight in the great glass palace. The rest of the afternoon drifts by in a soft blur of light and possibility. Tropical birds, strange plants, photographs taken in minutes instead of hours, a world bursting open before your careful Victorian eyes. But beneath it all, a deeper truth settles gently into place. Something is changing between you and Thomas. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with the quiet certainty of a future beginning to take shape. And by the time you return home, the sky turning golden over London, you know that the next chapter will not be like the ones before. Part 7. The Proposal. The days after the Crystal Palace visit pass with a quiet, restless energy. Something unspoken lingers in the air. Not a promise, but the hint of one. A delicate thread stretching between you and Thomas, growing tighter with each passing hour. Your Sunday meetings continue as usual. 2 o'clock, 1 hour, your mother nearby, your aunt sometimes watching. The rules remain the same, but the meaning beneath them has changed. Thomas's voice is warmer, your replies softer. Both of you move through each conversation with an awareness too subtle for words, yet too clear to ignore. Even your mother notices. She says nothing directly, but her glances follow you more closely now, measuring, evaluating, waiting. Then, one evening in late spring, a heavy thunderstorm rolls across London. Rain lashes the windows, distant thunder grumbles like an unsettled sky. You're in the parlor with your mother, working quietly on embroidery, when the front bell rings. It is far too late for a social call. Mary, your maid, appears in the doorway, her face pale from the rush. "Begging your pardon, ma'am, but Mr. Thomas Weatherbe is at the door. He says the matter is urgent." Your heart strikes one hard, unsteady beat. Your father arrives from his study, looking puzzled, newspaper still in hand. He exchanges a brief word with Mary and steps into the hallway. Through the cracked door, you see Thomas standing there. Hat in hand, clothes damp from rain, his expression tense. Not frightened, not desperate, but determined. He has not come for a casual visit. Your father leads him into the study, closing the door behind them. The minutes that follow stretch longer than hours. You sit frozen, needle unmoving, heart racing so loudly you fear your mother must hear it. Low voices murmur behind the study door. Your father's steady tone, Thomas's deeper one. Occasional pauses, a soft thud, perhaps a hand on the desk. Then silence, then footsteps. Your father enters the parlor alone. He clears his throat. His expression is serious, but beneath it, you sense something else. Approval, and maybe even relief. "Eleanor," he begins, "Mr. Sir Weatherbe has asked for permission to pay his addresses to you." Your breath catches. The silk in your lap slips from your fingers and falls soundlessly to the floor. Your father continues, his voice calm and formal, as the world shifts beneath your feet. "I have given my consent." The next morning, you wake earlier than usual. Your room feels lighter somehow, as if the air itself is holding its breath with you. You choose a dress of soft gray with gentle violet trim. Serious, but beautiful. Suitable for a moment that may define the rest of your life. Your hands shake slightly as Mary arranges your hair. She smiles warmly, understanding without needing to ask. At precisely 2 o'clock, Thomas arrives. This time he carries a small velvet box. Your mother positions herself in the corner of the parlor with her needlework. Present but distant, close yet not intrusive. You sit on the edge of the settee, heart thrumming beneath your corset, hands folded tightly in your lap. Thomas takes his seat across from you. The same arrangement as every visit, yet completely transformed. He begins slowly, as though measuring each word with care and sincerity. Miss Hartwell. A pause, then, Eleanor, if I may. Your name in his voice fills the room with a quiet electricity. These past weeks have been among the happiest of my life, he continues. Your intelligence, your gentleness, your strength. I find that I cannot imagine my future without you in it. He drops to one knee beside the settee, holding out the small velvet box. Your breath stops. The moment has arrived. He opens the box. Inside lies a modest diamond ring, surrounded by small pearls. Not extravagant, but chosen with care. Eleanor Hartwell, would you do me the greatest honor of becoming my wife? Emotion rises in your chest faster than your breath can keep up. All the careful restraint, all the quiet hopes, all the delicate Sunday moments lead to this single point. Your voice emerges as a whisper. Yes, then stronger. Yes, Thomas, I would be honored. He exhales, a long, trembling breath full of relief, joy, and something deeper. He takes your ungloved hand, warm and steady, and slides the ring onto your finger. It fits perfectly. In the corner, your mother's needlework falls into her lap as she discreetly wipes tears from her eyes. The engagement is official. The future, once uncertain, now unfolds before you like the beginning of a long, tender journey. A journey you will walk not alone, but with Thomas at your side. Part 8. The Victorian Wedding. The weeks following your engagement unfold in a quiet whirlwind. Your name appears in the Sunday paper, announcing your betrothal to Mr. Thomas Weatherbe. Neighbors offer polite congratulations. Relatives send letters full of advice, some helpful, some overwhelming. Yet beneath the surface of all this activity, you feel the gentle pulse of something new, a future taking shape. Your mother becomes the conductor of your preparations. There are fittings, fabric samples, lists written and rewritten, visits from dressmakers, and endless discussions about lace, gloves, and proper color schemes. You learn that a Victorian wedding is not simply a ceremony. It is a statement, a declaration of family standing, a showcase of refinement, and a careful performance in which every detail carries meaning. The dress arrives after weeks of delicate work. White silk, Brussels lace, dozens of tiny pearl buttons that Mary fastens with trembling excitement. When you try it on for the first time, your breath catches. Not only because of the corset tightened beneath it, but because of what the dress represents. A final moment in the life you're about to leave behind. Your veil is borrowed from your grandmother, a soft cascade of lace that carries decades of family history. As Mary places it onto your carefully arranged hair, you see in the mirror not only yourself, but generations of women who walked this same path without ever speaking openly of their fears. The morning of your wedding dawns grey and softly raining. A London blessing, your father says with a smile, meant to steady you. You rise early, too restless for sleep. Your breakfast tray holds nothing heavy because everyone knows a bride's nerves are delicate things. Mary dresses you slowly, layer by layer. The shift, the corset laced tighter than usual. The petticoats, the crinoline wide enough to support the train of your gown. When the dress is finally lowered over your head, it feels as though you are stepping into another life. Your mother enters in her deep purple gown, eyes shining with emotion she tries to hide. Aunt Caroline follows, practical and efficient, pinning one last silk flower into your hair. The house hums with familiar sounds. Cook arranging platters for the wedding breakfast. Your father pacing as he rehearses the speech he will give. Guests' carriages arriving outside in the drizzle. Then the moment comes. Your father offers his arm and leads you to the carriage, waiting to take you to St. George's Church. London looks different through the Vale's soft haze. Horses splash through puddles. Street vendors pause to watch as you pass. Windows glow with candlelight despite the grayness of the morning. When you reach the church, rain taps gently on the roof as if the sky itself is offering a quiet blessing. The heavy wooden doors open. A soft murmur rises from the gathered guests. Friends, relatives, neighbors, all turning to see you. This is your moment. The organ begins the processional. Your heart beats in time with each measured step down the long aisle. At the altar, Thomas waits in his best black coat. His hands are clasped behind his back, but when he sees you, something in his expression softens. A warmth, a quiet awe. For a moment, you forget the crowd. You forget the rules. There is only him. Your father places your hand in Thomas's, and you feel the steadiness of his grip. Warm, confident, gentle. The ceremony flows like a tide of ancient words, vows spoken softly, yet with the weight of a lifetime. Promises to love, to honor, to remain faithful. You speak them with a voice that trembles at first, then strengthens as you look into Thomas's eyes. When the rector pronounces you husband and wife, the world seems to still. A quiet hush, a shift, a new identity settling gently into place. Thomas offers a brief, chaste kiss, appropriate for a church full of witnesses. Yet within that touch lies a promise of tenderness that is yours alone. The wedding breakfast at your family home is a blur of laughter, congratulations, and clinking glasses. Roast fowl, fresh bread, jellies, and custards fill the table. You barely eat. The corset is tight, your nerves tighter still. Guests approach with advice, some kind, some amusing, some unnecessary. Thomas stays close by your side, offering quiet reassurance whenever your breath grows short. As the afternoon fades, the last guests depart, the house begins to quiet. The time has come to change into your traveling dress, to say goodbye to the home of your childhood, and to journey toward your new life. Your mother's tears come openly now. Your father attempts dignity and fails with a soft sniff. You hug them both, your heart full and strangely aching. Then Thomas takes your hand and guides you to the carriage. Your trunks are loaded. Your future awaits. As the rain continues its gentle fall, you ride through the familiar streets for the last time as Miss Hartwell. When you step over the threshold of the house in Kensington, you enter as Mrs. Weatherbe, a new life, a new home, a new chapter that is only beginning. Part 9. The first days of marriage. Your new home in Kensington welcomes you with a quiet warmth that contrasts sharply with the storm outside. A small fire glows in the front parlor. Fresh flowers rest in simple vases, and Mrs. Davies, the housekeeper, greets you with a respectful curtsy and a kind smile that eases your nerves more than you expect. Thomas shows you each room, the parlor, the kitchen, the modest library, and finally the bedroom you now share. Your trunks have been delivered, lined up neatly near the wardrobe like silent promises of all that awaits you. The air feels unfamiliar, not unpleasant, just new. A gentle reminder that your life has turned a corner from which there is no returning. Dinner is quiet and intimate, served in the small dining room by candlelight. Roasted chicken, root vegetables, and a light custard, all prepared with care for the first shared meal of your married life. Thomas speaks softly, as if aware that the walls of this house have never heard the two of you together before. "I've arranged to take leave from the office for the remainder of the week," he says. "I thought it best to give us time to settle into our new routines without any outside pressures." You look up, surprised. This small gesture, this deliberate carving out of time, moves you more than any grand speech could. He wants to begin gently. After dinner, the two of you sit in the parlor. Thomas reads the evening paper aloud, his voice low and steady, while you attempt to focus on your embroidery. But your mind drifts to the room upstairs that now belongs to both of you. Every so often, your eyes meet over the flickering candlelight. Neither of you speaks. The silence is not uncomfortable, only full of awareness. At 9 o'clock, Mrs. Davies extinguishes the lamps and bids you both good night. Her footsteps fade, leaving the house quiet, and leaving the two of you alone for the first time without the presence of a parent, a chaperone, or a watchful eye. Thomas turns toward you, gentle and sincere. "Elena, this is all very new. We need not rush anything. We have our whole lives to understand one another." His consideration eases the tightness in your chest. You smile, small but real. "Thank you, Thomas." He guides you upstairs and shows you the small dressing room where he will change for the night, giving you privacy. When you're alone, you remove your traveling dress and change into the fine cotton nightgown you packed so carefully in your trousseau trunk. You sit at the dressing table, brushing your hair and looking into the mirror at a woman who is now a wife. A new role, a new identity, a new chapter beginning tonight. When Thomas returns, he wears a simple nightshirt and a modest dressing gown. He sits on the edge of the bed, keeping a respectful distance as if uncertain how close to be on this first night. You join him, tentative, quiet, but willing. He reaches out and takes your hand, warm, steady, reassuring. It is the first moment of true intimacy between you as husband and wife. Not dramatic, not rushed, just two people slowly learning the shape of each other's presence. That night, you fall asleep beside him with a feeling that is not quite certainty and not quite fear, but something tender and full of promise. The following days blossom into a soft rhythm of discovery. You wake to the scent of warm bread. You walk through sunlit rooms that now feel a little more familiar. You plan your first meals together with Mrs. Davis's guidance. You take walks through the neighborhood, your hand lightly on Thomas's arm. Every day brings something new. A shared laugh, a small misunderstanding, a quiet moment on the settee as he reads his accounts and you arrange fresh flowers from the market. The house grows warmer with each passing morning, as if adapting itself to the two hearts now filling it. Your signature changes for the first time. You write to your parents, your loving daughter, Elena Weatherbe. The new name feels strange, but not unwelcome, like a pair of gloves, slightly stiff on the first wearing, softening with time. Marriage, you realize, is not defined by the ceremony or the ring or the first night together. Marriage is defined by these quiet days of adjusting, learning, and growing side by side. And in this small Kensington home, gently, steadily, a partnership begins to form. Conclusion: what we learn. As the story of your Victorian journey gently closes, we step back from the intimate details. The corsets, the chaperones, the candlelit parlors, the quiet exchanges of glances, and look at the larger truth behind it all. Victorian courtship was not simply love wrapped in lace. It was a structure, a framework built from expectations, tradition, and a society deeply concerned with reputation. Yet within that structure, real affection could grow, Not loudly, not recklessly, but patiently, like a candle steadily brightening a dim room. What do we learn from stepping into this world? We learn that relationships in the Victorian era were slow, deliberate creations. They valued observation, conversation, and the gradual unfolding of character. In a time when touching hands was an intimate act and a single gift could signal too much boldness, love had to grow in the quiet spaces between rules and restraint. We also learned that marriage was not simply romance. It was the merging of two lives, two families, two sets of responsibilities. And while society imposed its rigid framework, the success of a union depended on something timeless: kindness, patience, respect, and the slow weaving of shared days and shared dreams. The rituals may seem distant now. The calling cards, the supervised walks, the precise one-hour visits. But the human longing beneath them remains familiar. The desire to be understood, to be chosen, to build a life with someone who sees your heart beneath every rule and every layer. And so, as we leave this Victorian home and let the gas lamps dim behind us, we carry forward a quiet lesson. Love does not always need haste. It does not always need dramatic declarations or sweeping gestures. Sometimes, love grows strongest when given the time and space to unfold gently, just like it did for Thomas and Elena. Their story reminds us that even in the strictest of eras, even within the most carefully constructed systems, the human heart finds its way. It always has, and it always will. As you drift into sleep, perhaps take one last thought with you, a whisper from the past. Patience in love is not the absence of passion, but its quiet preparation. And with that, we close the chapter on a Victorian romance that began with rules and ended with a life built on gentle understanding.